Did you know in the United States, there's a patch of forest in Oregon that regrows itself overnight, but never the same way twice? Locals call it Mirror Root Hollow. In 1991, a logging crew cleared a 5-acre section of it. By morning, the trees had returned, taller, twisted, and covered in bark that looked like scarred skin. One worker, Vince Caro, went in to investigate. He never came out. They found his helmet outside the forest, filled with black water. His name was etched into the side of a nearby tree, but backwards, like it had grown that way. Now hikers say the trail markers vanish once you're inside. Compass needles spin, and the deeper you go, the more the forest begins to mimic you, perfectly. Whispers echo your voice. You see footprints that match your shoes, but going in the opposite direction. In 2018, a group of campers left a fire burning overnight. When they woke up, their tents were rearranged into a perfect circle, and every tree had their faces carved into the trunks, crying. One survivor said, "The forest doesn't kill you, it just replaces you." So if you ever find yourself in Mirror Root Hollow and hear yourself calling from ahead, don't follow the sound, because if you leave a piece of yourself behind, the forest will give it a life of its own. Did you know in the United States there's a cemetery in Louisiana that unlocks itself at midnight? It's called Merrow's Rest, a small graveyard hidden behind rusted iron gates. Locals say the gates are chained during the day, but if you pass by at night, you'll find them wide open, even though no one has the key. In 1985, a night security guard named Paul stopped to close the gates. Inside, he saw lanterns glowing between the tombstones. Thinking it was trespassers, he went in and never came back. His flashlight was found at the base of an open grave, still warm to the touch. Visitors say once you step through the gates, the path changes behind you. Names on the headstones rearrange into yours. Footsteps follow you, but always 2 steps behind. One woman swore she saw her own date of death carved into a stone, fresh and wet, even though she was still breathing. The oldest locals claim the cemetery was built on top of an unfinished church, its altar buried beneath the soil. They say at midnight the gates open to let the congregation out, and they're always looking for new members. So if you ever drive past Merrow's Rest and see the gates standing open, don't go inside, because once they close again, you don't get to leave. Did you know in the United States, there's a train that passes through the Midwest every autumn, but it hasn't been on the schedule for over 70 years? They call it the Ash Line. In 1951, passenger train 63 derailed outside of St. Cloud, Minnesota during a heavy storm. The wreck burned for 2 days. Everyone on board died. Their remains never recovered. The line was shut down and the tracks removed. But every October, just after midnight, people report hearing the low rumble of wheels and a distant whistle. The sound grows louder until a black train emerges from the darkness, its windows glowing faint orange, as if lit by fire inside. Those who've seen it up close say the passengers are pale and still, their eyes fixed on the windows as if watching you. Some wave slowly, others tap the glass. In 1999, a man named Eric tried to flag it down. Witnesses say he stepped toward the tracks, and the train passed right through him. He was gone before it cleared the crossing. All that remained was his watch, the hands frozen at 12:04. Locals claim if you hear the ash line, you must turn away and cover your ears, because if you listen closely, you'll hear the conductor calling your name, and if you step aboard, you won't know it until the next October. Did you know in the United States there's an abandoned playground in Ohio that answers anyone who speaks there after dark? It's called Hallow Bend Park, closed in 1984 after 3 children went missing during a summer picnic. The swings still stand, chains rusted, seats cracked, yet they sometimes sway on windless nights. In 1999, a group of teenagers snuck in with a camcorder. They took turns asking questions into the empty air. At first, nothing happened, until one boy asked, "Where are you?" From the seesaw, a child's voice giggled and whispered, "Behind you!" The footage ends there, but police found the camcorder at the park gate the next morning. The tape had one final frame, the boy's terrified face, and a pair of small hands covering his eyes from behind. Locals say if you sit on the swings after midnight and ask the right question, the playground will answer. Not with your voice, but the voice of someone you lost. One woman swore she heard her sister's laughter from the slide, even though her sister had drowned years before. She ran to the sound and was never seen again. Now the city keeps the gates locked, but the chains are often found broken, as if something wants to let people in. If you ever pass Hollow Bend Park and hear children playing when you can't see them, don't look, because if you make eye contact, you'll be playing forever. Did you know in the United States there's a bus route in Chicago that picks up passengers but never drops them off? It's called Route Zero, and it's not on any schedule. It only appears on cold, foggy nights at stops where no buses are due. Witnesses say the headlights seem dim, almost flickering, and the bus number is painted in faded silver. In 1978, a factory worker named Thomas Green took it after missing his regular ride. Inside, the seats were old, the windows frosted from the inside, and the other passengers sat perfectly still, their faces pale, their eyes unfocused. No one spoke. Thomas asked the driver where the bus was headed. The man never turned, just said, "Last stop." Hours passed. The city streets gave way to empty roads, then forests, then nothing but endless black. Thomas tried to get off, but every time he stepped to the door, he'd find himself back in his seat. When the bus finally stopped, the doors opened to a place with no lights, no sounds, and air so cold it burned his lungs. That's where his memory ends. His body was found days later on a bench miles from the city, frozen, his bus ticket still in his hand. To this day, Route Zero still appears. Sometimes commuters swear they see friends or family inside, staring out with hollow eyes. If you ever see it pull up to your stop, no matter how late or cold it is, wait for the next one. Did you know in the United States there are reports of children who knock on doors late at night, asking to be let in, but something about them isn't human? The first sightings go back to the 1990s in Texas. A man sitting in his car outside a movie theater said two boys approached asking for a ride home. Their voices were calm, polite, but when he looked closer, their eyes were solid black, no whites, no pupils. He felt a sudden wave of terror. The boys insisted, "We can't come in unless you say yes." He drove away instead. Since then, stories have spread everywhere. In Vermont, a woman heard knocking at 2 a.m. Two children stood on her porch, pale, barefoot in the snow. They asked to use her phone. When she hesitated, their smiles widened and the power in her house went out. She slammed the door. For hours, she heard scratching on the walls, whispers through the vents. Witnesses say the children never force their way inside. They only ask. But those who invite them in are never the same. Pets vanish. Shadows move. Some families disappear altogether. Their houses found empty. Doors still locked from the inside. So if you hear a knock after midnight and see children waiting outside, don't answer. Because once you let them in, they never leave. Did you know in the United States there are countless reports of a ghost who asks for a ride, but never makes it to the destination? The most famous happened on Route 66 outside Chicago in the 1930s. A man was driving home when he saw a young woman on the side of the road, shivering in a white dress. She said her name was Mary and asked for a ride home. He gave her his coat, and she sat silently in the passenger seat, staring out the window. When they reached her address, he turned to ask if she was okay, but the seat was empty. His coat was gone too. Confused, he knocked on the door. An older woman answered and calmly said, "You picked up my daughter, didn't you?" The man nodded. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "My daughter Mary died in a car accident on that road 10 years ago. She tries to come home every winter." To this day, drivers along that stretch of highway report the same thing, a pale young woman in white asking for a ride. Some claim she disappears from their cars. Others say she never makes it to the door. So if you're ever driving late at night and see a girl in white waving you down, think twice before stopping. because not every passenger belongs in this world. Did you know in the United States, there's a roadside motel in Nevada that travelers swear doesn't exist on any map? They call it the Red Room. It appears only when you're driving alone, tired, desperate for a place to rest. From the highway it looks normal, neon vacancy sign buzzing, a row of doors glowing under sick yellow lights. But guests say the moment you check in, something feels wrong. The clerk never speaks. He just slides you a brass key with the number 6 scratched into it. No matter which room you think you've rented, the key only opens one door, the Red Room. Inside, everything is crimson. The walls, the sheets, even the curtains. The TV plays static, but sometimes words flicker through calling your name. At exactly 3 a.m., footsteps echo outside your door. Heavy, dragging, like someone pulling chains. If you look through the peephole, you'll see a figure standing motionless, its face hidden by long black hair. Guests who open the door are never seen again. One trucker claimed he locked the door and hid under the bed. Hours later, he woke up parked back on the highway shoulder, motel gone, keys still in his pocket. The number 6 was burned into the palm of his hand. Locals say the Red Room appears to the lost, those with nowhere left to go. But if you ever see its glowing sign on a lonely stretch of road, keep driving, because once you enter, you don't check out. Did you know in the United States there are people who claim to have visited a carnival that doesn't exist? They call it the Silent Carnival. Witnesses say it only appears once a year, on the back roads of rural towns. No one sees it arrive. One night there's nothing, and the next, a glowing midway stretches across an empty field. The rides spin with no sound. Ferris wheels turn in silence. The calliope music plays, but only inside your head. Locals who've stumbled on it say the workers are strange. Carnies with pale faces, wide eyes that never blink, and smiles too sharp. When you ask how much the tickets cost, they don't speak. They just hold out their hands. Some gave coins, others blood. One man swore he saw his own name on the ticket stub. Inside, the prizes aren't stuffed animals, but jars of teeth, broken clocks, dolls with beating hearts. The cotton candy tastes like ash, the drinks like iron. And once you walk into the House of Mirrors, some people never find their way out. In the morning, the carnival is gone, just dead grass where the ride stood. But those who entered say they hear the music for weeks, faint at night, pulling them back. And every year, a few people disappear on country roads when the carnival returns. Their cars are found abandoned, doors open, tickets still clutched in their hands. So if you're ever driving past a glowing Ferris wheel in the middle of nowhere, don't stop, because once you step inside the Silent Carnival, you might never leave. In the swamps of Louisiana, there's an old wooden bridge locals call the Foggy Bridge, and it only appears when the mist rolls in thick. In 1997, a trucker named Marcus was driving home late when he saw it materialize out of nowhere. The bridge seemed normal, but the water below was black as tar, and the fog smelled faintly of burning. Curious, he stopped to take a photo. As soon as he stepped onto the bridge, the fog thickened. Shapes moved just beyond sight, and whispers carried across the boards, "Turn back, or stay forever." When Marcus tried to leave, the far end stretched impossibly, the bridge elongating with every step. Shadows crept along the planks, reaching for him with cold, wet hands. He ran, but the bridge twisted and looped, each plank leading him back to the same spot. Then he heard footsteps behind him, his own, but slower, heavier, as if another version of him was following. Marcus looked down to see footprints appear beside his own, but they weren't his. By dawn, hunters found his truck abandoned at the edge of the swamp. Marcus was gone. Only the bridge remained, fading with the morning fog. Locals warn, if you ever see the bridge appear in mist, don't cross, because some bridges don't just connect places, they trap the living. Did you know in the United States there's a forest in Maine where compasses and GPS devices stop working and hikers vanish without a trace? Locals call it Whispering Pines, and they say it's alive. In 2007, a wildlife photographer named Claire ventured in to capture rare owls. The deeper she went, the denser the forest became, and soon the trail markers she had been following disappeared entirely. At dusk, She heard soft whispers echoing from the trees, repeating her thoughts in a distorted, mocking tone. Shadows shifted between the trunks, tall, thin figures that seemed to stretch and bend unnaturally. When she tried to turn back, the forest rearranged itself. Paths twisted into loops that led her right back to the same spot. She stumbled upon an abandoned campsite with photos pinned to a tree, faces of hikers, frozen in silent screams. Claire realized the whispers weren't voices. They were the trapped consciousness of those who had disappeared. By the next morning, search teams found her camera on the forest floor, still recording. The footage showed her walking through the trees, but her body was never recovered. Hikers now claim if you enter Whispering Pines after dusk, you may hear your own thoughts repeated, and the forest may decide to keep you forever. Did you know in the United States there's a lake in Minnesota where people swear the water remembers who drowned in it? It's called Echo Lake, and locals avoid it after dark. They say if you stand near the shore at night, you'll hear voices calling your name. Not echoes, but cries for help in tones that sound exactly like someone you know. In 2007, two brothers went fishing there. The younger one swore he heard their mother screaming from the middle of the water, even though she was safe at home. He jumped in before his brother could stop him. The splash rippled once, then silence. No bubbles, no struggle. He was gone. Search teams dragged the lake for days, but never found his body. The sheriff said it was impossible, like he'd just vanished. A week later, hikers reported hearing a new voice echoing from the shore. It wasn't the mother's anymore. It was the missing brother, begging anyone who passed to join him. To this day, people claim Echo Lake steals voices to lure in the living. And once you follow the sound, your voice becomes the next one trapped beneath the surface.
Did you know in the United States, there's a bridge where drivers say something climbs into their car if they stop too long? In rural Kentucky, there's an old iron bridge locals call the Devil's Crossing. At night, it's pitch black, no lights for miles, and the only sound is rushing water beneath. For decades, people have claimed if you stall on that bridge, you're not alone. One man said his truck died halfway across. While trying to restart it, he heard footsteps on the roof. Not human, too heavy, too fast. When he looked up, a hand with claws tapped the windshield, leaving deep scratches in the glass. Another driver claimed she felt the back seat shift, like someone had climbed inside. When she turned, she saw glowing red eyes staring at her in the mirror. Locals say the bridge was built over the site of an old hanging tree, where prisoners once swore they'd return for revenge. Now, the curse lingers. If your car dies on Devil's Crossing, you'll hear a voice whisper your name before something unseen drags its nails across the metal. The scariest part, some cars are later found abandoned, doors open, headlights still burning, but the drivers vanish without a trace. To this day, folks warn, never stop on Devil's Crossing. If your car slows down, don't look in the rearview mirror, because whatever's riding with you wants you to keep driving straight to hell.